Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, it just seems like, although, you know, maybe it happens quite often on the planet, and maybe it's always that way on planet Earth and in the third dimension, but it just seems like now, in this time, in this space, there's a real opportunity for us as human beings to really, really, really come together, to bridge heaven and earth, to bring about a evolutionary, a radical, a real shift in the focus and the time and attention we spend on this planet, to bring us into a place where we're motivated by love, where we're motivated by the recognition and the realization of our connectedness, our oneness. And all those things that are manifested from our feelings of separation and separateness, and our feelings of feeling finite and feeling excluded, that those things will start to fade. And those manifestations that come from us feeling included and infinite and connected and full of love, those new paradigms will start to be forming on this planet and will affect every aspect of our lives. And those things that are manifested through that disharmony and separation, the illusion of separation, will die from their own illusion, from their own non-reality. And we will come into a new earth based on love, a new earth based on our experience of connection and truth and collaboration and creativity. And whatever they call a golden age, whatever they call a new earth, whatever anyone can dream, it will be more. And we've said so much on this show individually, and it's true collectively. Whatever we think we are, we're more. Whatever we think we can do more. Because the power of the human experience and the power of the human condition is literally beyond reason, beyond measure, beyond thought. The power that created this magnificence and this universe and this earth and out, and the planets and the galaxies is what each of us are. And as we say on the opening of the first page of the Bridging website, we are all made of love, God is love, and we are God. And whatever that means, and maybe it triggers things because you use the word God, but we are all that infinite. We are all that creative power. We are all that energy that includes everything and everyone. And when we experience that consistently and rub up against the magnet of the infinite, of the inclusive, then we recognize that the Father and I, the Goddess and I, are one. And that we are all in this great experiment together to serve and to create and to collaborate and to love. And it's an extraordinary opportunity now because there are so many people and so much energy feeding that recognition. I mean, literally, the power of that is so extraordinary, even in the light of all the seeming death throes of craziness, death throes of separation. So as the more of us come together and recognize and intend, the intention to serve, the intention to be part of that collaboration, that creativity, to want to recognize, to intend to recognize the infinite and the inclusion and the inclusiveness of that energy of all of us, we'll make it happen. And that is the opportunity for us now. You know, and people come in from all over the world as guests on Bridging because they know that that's the intent of the show, dedicated to the oneness, dedicated to the love. to share their particular gift, their particular way of experiencing that infinite, the way of experiencing that inclusion. And tonight's guest is no exception. Matt Kahn, he's an awakened mystic and a gifted intuitive healer. And he travels the world with his partner, Julie, who actually created 2 extraordinary pieces of art that you'll see as part of this show. And they travel the world to assist people in discovering their true divine nature, their oneness, their love, their infinite quality, their inclusive quality. And he had a spontaneous awakening at the age of 8 that arose out of an out-of-body experience that propelled him to come more and more into that recognition, to make it more and more real for him, and then to share those gifts with the world. And that really is solely what he's here to do and what he wants to do, what he intends to do. And we're really gifted and honored to have Matt with us. And as most of you know, we're in the middle of another gifted, visionary project that came to us as a dream, as a vision, of, in a sense, hosting or being part of or letting come through us or manifesting an international healing art project, where we'd reach out and we'd let people know that if anybody in the world of any skill level, of any age, of any race, nationality, anything, any size, any format, to produce a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. And then we'll show them on the shows. We'll have art project shows. We'll have art exhibits. We have an extraordinarily beautiful website, heaventoearthart.com. And all these pieces will come together as a healing, as an acupuncture for the planet, to have all these extraordinary people creating and collaborating from all these points all over the world. And producing that piece is really like an acupuncture for the planet, a healing for the planet. And so we have 2 of Julie's pieces tonight that are just extraordinary and powerful and beautiful. And as we normally do, we have videos on the show. And tonight we have an art music video from a new friend of Bridging, Blago, who was born in Macedonia, now has an art gallery and lives in Carmel, California, who produced this beautiful art of his art, and he's doing a piece for the International Healing Art Project as well. So there's just really an opportunity to see so much beauty and to feel so much beauty and to settle in to who you really are. And who you really are is connected to everyone else. Who you really are is infinite. Who you really are is not excluded from anything important on this planet. Because you're one with the love, you're part of the love. The Father, the Goddess, and you are one. So join me in a short meditation, and then we'll have the video. And also I'll read you some beautiful things that Julie wrote about her first piece that we'll see after the video. So join me in a short meditation. Hi. That was nice music, actually. So let me read you. So Julie's first piece that you're looking at now is called Sacred Om. And this is what Julie says about Sacred Om. This piece was created in the hand-painted style of the sacred Sanskrit symbol Om that are often seen on the sides of buildings throughout India. It features warm earth tones and Om to represent connection with all that is eternal, peaceful, and ever-present. This piece is infused with healing Reiki energies, vibrations and frequencies from Om tuning forks, and sacred Sanskrit chant. So, beautiful. All right, so now we're going to have the first video, the first half of the Blago art video. I mean, he's just such a talented guy, and his art is to serve the love, to serve the connection, to serve the healing. So, Blago, enjoy. Hi everybody, welcome back. So that was a beautiful video. You'll see more of it and more of Blago's art. Just an extraordinary talent and really just using it to serve the love. And he's also doing, as I said, an art piece for the International Healing Art Project. So we're very anxious to see what form and what style comes through for that. So we're very fortunate. And the incredible piece of art that you see in between Matt and I was done by Matt's partner, Julie Dittmar. It's multimedia, acrylic, blowtorch, metal, photography, beads, and ink. It's called Sacred Om. So, and that was I was reading that about the piece before the meditation. So, welcome, Matt.
Oh, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Good. So, at the opening, I talked about you being an enlightened or an awakened mystic.
Sure.
What does that mean to you, and how'd that come to be? And
Right. Well, when I was 6 years old, my first experience, which I can look back and reflect upon, was I was outside of my parents' home by a neighbor's yard, and there was a white brick wall. I remember looking at the brick wall, and my earliest memory was noticing the brick wall and somehow having a sense that I'm not the person looking at the wall, but more so I'm the space between it. And so from a very early age to a lot of incredible experiences that have really touched me quite profoundly, I have existed in form to live like we all live in these bodies, but with a full body recognition and knowing that what I'm experiencing in form is not what I am, and yet what I am has no interest and need to try to be away from any experience. So it's hard to talk about that word without making it seem like it's something or something special or different, when to me really what it is just living from the most natural state of being that we all already live from, but when you recognize that, it will drastically change the way you live your life.
right, and so you had that in Earth body, an early age.
Yeah.
And so how did that progress to you? At age 8, something other extraordinary happened to you as an out-of-body. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how that kind of propelled you
Sure.
to live your life the way you're living it and with that intention?
Well, when I was 8, I had an out-of-body experience. I found myself in the most extraordinary garden where the colors of this garden were just so bright and vibrant. It was like the colors were radiating this sense of love that I can't even describe to you. But it was a sense of love that made everything that I saw that I couldn't describe somehow obvious and natural, kind of like if you had a dream and you saw things that didn't make sense to your rational mind, but you kind of just go along with it. So I'm in this beautiful garden with these brilliant colors, and I can feel my body moving through a field of waist-high flowers, and as I'm feeling my body push through the field of waist-high flowers, I suddenly realize I'm actually hovering above the flowers simultaneously. And there's a being in a white robe and dark hair and a dark beard motioning me towards him. And as I started to float towards this being, there was this pure light piercing through the eyes of this being. And as that 8-year-old, I thought of like the scary movies where people kind of roll their eyes up into their heads. And so I had that thought that broke the whole experience, and I fell through the garden and back into my body, which is how I knew I had somehow left the body. And from that experience, I began seeing beings walking with me, and I felt the same love I felt from the garden, and I started to intuitively know these are my spirit guides. And then my friends would go, well, what's a spirit guide? And I don't know, I'm 8 years old. So I had this intuitive knowing of things, but I didn't know why I knew what I knew. And so from that moment on, I started to be able to feel what it was like to feel inside the bodies of everyone that I was around. But the innocent mistake that was made is that I thought that everything I felt in other people's bodies was what they thought about me. So I spent most of my childhood apologizing and trying to help people feel better, because I thought if they felt better, they would think better things about me and so forth. And when I was 18, the guides that I had always felt around me peripherally started to speak to me. And then from that moment on, from 18 to, let's say, 27, I spent most of my time attuning my intuitive abilities of seeing, hearing, and feeling, and having direct experiences with various archangels and ascended masters who taught me everything I know about the spiritual journey. And from that point, I started giving readings, I started doing healing work, and my life took an unexpected different turn. And just when I thought that everything had, gone as different as it could go, there was another extraordinary awakening. That even waking up out of the idea of Matt, that even though I'm experiencing what it's like to be an evolution of someone called Matt, that has nothing to do with who I am, who you are, life whatsoever. And there was this sense of living from that place. but it wasn't a living from that place that had any responsibility. It was actually the internal relinquishing of all responsibility. And from relinquishing all responsibility to the world and to myself, I actually found an innate level of love in myself to embrace everything the way I've never embraced it before. So when I was stuck in trying to take responsibility for myself and trying to take responsibility for the world, I found myself not having enough love to give.
It's too heavy.
Yeah.
You can't love, you're too heavy.
Right, so I let go of everything.
Right.
And then all I had left was an innate instinct to embrace everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's how do you get to be born again every moment
Exactly.
and not carry anything, any identity, any way, any tradition
Right.
with you
Well,
in every moment.
I think for me, one of the most amazing experiences was when spontaneously I had a realization that I just sat in my living room and I was just listening and realizing that nothing actually contains any meaning. That if we just stop, nothing's asking to be called anything. Even if a
Right.
thought arises,
Right.
a thought's not asking to be called a thought. So if a thought's not asking to be
Right.
called a thought, why am I calling it that? If the body isn't asking to be called the body, why am I calling it that? And so I just kind of let the world be itself. I let myself be myself, but I didn't have any ideas of what that meant. So I had nothing to maintain, I had nothing to seek, and at that point I had nothing to lose. And with absolutely nothing to lose, nothing to seek, nothing to gain, the innate
You're
experience
free.
of life, I was totally free.
Right.
And I actually didn't have an idea of free.
Right.
I just started to learn about
Right.
the traps of that through when I started to work with people on a very deep level. But it was a freedom that was meaningless, but it was, of course, not void or absent of purpose. So it was a very purposeful, meaningless freedom, which can sound...
Yeah, I know, it's interesting because everything we're talking about is almost unspoken.
Sure.
And we're using words and we're doing
Right.
a talk show.
Right, the words are decorating
Right.
the absence of what we're pointing to.
Right.
So it's,
and we're just
yeah.
vibrating something, hopefully, and that,
Sure.
that will be what people will feel.
Sure.
ultimately.
Hopefully, of course, the intention is our sincerity, so those with the sincere intentions will get, of course, anything out of what's being said, because sincerity, of course, dances with itself.
Yeah, it opens the doors.
Right. So again, we're just here just speaking about the unspeakable. And what's even interesting, I was talking to someone last week and they said, well, you can't put the truth into words. And I said, and the problem with that is that you still believe those words. So if you can't put the truth into words,
Yeah, what does that mean?
those words mean nothing either.
Right, exactly.
So then the
Right.
sense of humor of freedom is really quite obvious and ever present. And I think part of the issue is that we are trying to arrive at a place of freedom. We're associating emotional states and saying, when I feel this way, then I'm going to be free. And it's, of course, part of a future plan, whereas the journey that I help people with, when one is sincere and ready enough for the deeper part of the journey, is let's stop seeking altogether and let's just find out what's actually true about you. And we use that word true all the time, but for me, true is another way of saying always. So the question is, what is true? What is always the case in you? What about you is always? And if we just find that which is always in ourselves, you're going to already know what is always about the world.
And everyone else.
Right, so I think part of the problem is that we're trying to live out a certain concept of awakening, and if we're going to have the straightest trajectory, it is stop what you're doing and find out what is always the same in you. And then that, of course, makes the journey very direct. It's not about, all this other negotiation or concepts or meaning. Because again, the biggest dilemma is that we try to get to a place of pure, meaningless, profound beingness. We try to get to that meaningless place with meaning. And so that, of course, will
Yeah,
never
creates
happen.
tremendous problems for a human
Right.
being.
It's actually one of the best things you can ever fail at.
Right. But you have to be really sincere that you failed.
We have
And
to see the futility of
the
it.
futility.
You have to be
Right,
able to,
exactly.
you have to say,
You let
every
go.
time I try to seek meaninglessness with meaning, I fail. And the failure is actually the revealing of the insight. But the problem is most people think the failure is the absence of the goal versus
Or the
insight.
wrong method.
Right, of course.
Right.
Of course. And
So that's why we go to 4 million methods.
of course. And of
tools.
course, when every method fails, hopefully we're getting closer to the insight that no method can get you where you want to be.
Where you
because,
already are, in a
right,
sense, right.
Right, because you're chasing an idea.
Right.
And you can know that, and you can even have someone say, I'm chasing an idea. but they're still holding out. They're still holding themselves. They're still, even if they have the idea or they can speak it with words, they're not free in their own experience. And so my purpose is to assist people in whatever way of clearing whatever obstacles appear to be in the way so that one can experience their own innate sense of freedom now and to live from that space and to not make it into an arduous effort or a practice or like something that we have to maintain.
Struggle, big struggle.
Yeah, again, if we're talking about reality, we're talking about what has always been. And so what we're talking about, which has always been, isn't what we're creating. What we're creating celebrates reality, but reality itself doesn't come and go. So if we're really clear and sincere about it, it can be quite a simple and direct path when one is ready for that.
Right. And so, I mean, throughout history, there have been spiritual paths, there have been tools, there are techniques.
Right.
I mean, and so how would you describe how you bring people into that experience, you know, on an ongoing basis so it becomes more and more real to them
Right.
what their true nature really is?
I would say there's a lot of ways of going about this through the mind, and my whole purpose is to come about this whole journey through the heart. Because with the mind, we have meaning from past experiences, we have interpretations, and my approach is to let go of meaning and to have experiences, have emotional experiences that might be void of meaning, but when an emotional experience is void of meaning, it's not void of significance. A lot of times we're taught that if I don't understand what's happening, I can't have the experience I want. And yet with the meaning we project onto it, we limit our experience. So my whole purpose is to give people a chance to take the whole journey of awakening, but from the heart's perspective. So it's all about feeling, it's all about nothing's wrong, nothing's right. It's all just about your direct experience, and it's only about what you can confirm within yourself. And if you can't confirm it within yourself, then it's a concept. And that makes it very direct. And it also makes it only about seeking what's true about yourself. Because of course then we involve the world in trying to say, well, okay, well, how do you speak on what's happening in the world? But what's happening in the world is a manifestation or a projection of what hasn't been seen within ourselves. So it's really a journey of the heart, and it's a journey of simplicity. And it's one of those journeys where it requires your deepest level of sincerity. And so for those that are already in a sincere place, the awakenings are quite obvious and immediate. And for those that haven't quite gotten to that place of sincerity, what I offer delivers them into that sincere heart space, so that one doesn't have to feel that, when I'm not loving another or when I'm not feeling loved, I don't feel like I'm in my heart. I kind of describe the heart space of just bringing attention into the heart and actually just feeling through your experiences versus just having an emotional experience of your thoughts or having your feelings be a visceral interpretation of your ideas, which for most people, the reason we avoid our feelings is because most of our lives we're just having a feeling sense of what our thoughts feel like when translated through our emotions. So it's for those that are wanting to awaken, those that want to live in emotional freedom, those that have been on a healing journey for many years. All those paths kind of converge in what I seem to be here offering. So it's just a pleasure to be able to be of service and to meet so many beautiful, innocent hearts everywhere I go. Such as yourself. Here we are.
That's right.
Playing this fun game together, right?
It's beautiful.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for what reason? For no reason.
Right.
It's just beauty, isn't it?
Right.
Life can't help but be beautiful.
Right. Yeah, we talk about it a lot. It's like love in motion. What's the reason? What's the idea behind it? It just is.
It just is.
Right.
And thank God, because if there was a purpose behind it, then it would be really conditional. But if there's no reason, then it's eternal.
Yeah, and actually at some point, probably in your talks or lectures,
Right.
you say that you almost give a reason that a mind could catch on, but you in your heart know that reason doesn't exist, except
right.
as like a ladder in the third dimension.
Yeah, I actually, a lot of times I really don't. People will ask for the reason. Why is this the way it is? And I really don't give reasons, because if I give a reason, then someone wants to know what they can then do as a tool to get to their preferred emotional state, preferred physical reality, and those kind of things. My whole purpose of being is to not give people the reasons why things exist, because that's just giving another concept.
And it's also giving incomplete. It can never be complete.
Right, and at the very best, it's just a very passionate opinion. But my whole point of view and what I saw in my own journey is that we attract things in our lives that purposely trigger a certain emotional state. And the emotional state that arises in response to anything is actually showing us the part of ourselves that is yet to be loved by anyone. So people come and they say, oh, I'm being triggered by people in my lives. I'm not able to be conscious. So how can you help me to not react to things? The way we get beyond reactions is to know that a reaction is showing you where in your body to send your love next. So if anger arises, the unconscious tendency is to look at the anger as somehow in the way of consciousness, when really, anger shows me that what's next in line to be loved is the angry part of self. And I'm learning that the angry part of self is as deserving for love as the happy part of self. So really what happens in this awakening is we actually let go of distinction and preference. And whatever arises naturally in the presence of another person, that person is showing us where we can send our love next. And so really everyone becomes our teacher, everyone becomes our friend, everyone becomes a help in helping consciousness, and when I say helping consciousness, assisting in consciousness, having its experience of awakening to itself. And I think one of the first things we really need to learn is a reaction is not proof that you are less than anything. I mean, how could you ever be less than what has manifested itself in this form? The fact is, what arises in the presence of the world in your body is showing you where to send your love next. And if a reaction isn't arising in your body, then whoever is in front of you is there to be loved as well. And because there's only one, when you love another, you're being loved, and when you love yourself, the world's being loved. So really, it's all a fun game where everything is love, no matter whether the subject is your heart or someone else's heart. Right. And to me, that's really the compelling part of this journey, is when people go, oh, I'm not here to stop reacting, I'm here to change my relationship with reactions. That's actually quite profound for a lot of people, because I think a lot of times we look at, here's a list of how I know I'm being spiritually aligned. Here are the ways that I'm not spiritually aligned. If any of these things happen, then I need to figure out a way to get beyond these things so that the world can't limit my experience. But what happens if you notice that whatever arises in your experience is there to be loved? Now there's no spiritual journey. Now there's just a journey of love. And if we look around the world, life is just asking to be loved. And those that are asking for the greatest love are usually barking the loudest or the ones hiding in the shadows. So what if we all just spend our time loving what arises internally or externally? You talk about bridging heaven and earth. From that perspective, when you love what arises, what happens spontaneously is that we see that perhaps heaven is earth seen clearly. Right? Instead of creating heaven and earth. Right.
Yeah, fade into the oneness.
Right. What if heaven is earth seen clearly? Again, in order to have that experience, love what arises. And if you can't love what's arising in yourself emotionally, then love the one who can't. And if you won't love what arises, then love the one who won't. And then we've outsmarted the entire mind.
Which is not so easy. The mind is very tricky.
Not from the perspective of mind. From the perspective of mind, it's very difficult to outsmart the mind.
Right.
From the perspective of heart,
right. It's a whole different tool. It's a whole different path.
Right, because the question from the perspective of heart is what mind? So if you think there's a mind, you can't outsmart it. If you've looked within yourself and seen, when I just look within, I see no mind whatsoever. There is no mind outside of my thoughts about it. And there is no one within the body with whom the mind belongs to, even if it was here. What mind are we speaking of? Perhaps we're speaking about an idea that thinks about itself. See, that's what
a tricky experiment.
And that's what the heart already knows. And so that's what I'm here to help people through is before we make the mind a problem, first let's look for it. And in the absence of finding the mind,
what does exist?
Right, well, that's a good question.
Right.
And my answer to that would be, what's aware?
Right, consciousness.
Right, love.
Right.
And here's the next question. Is consciousness referring to itself as consciousness? Or is it just conscious?
Right.
Is awareness referring to itself as awareness?
It can if it takes a third-dimensional body.
Right, but does it, if we were just to listen right now?
No, it wouldn't need to.
It doesn't call itself anything, does it?
Call it anything.
Does love?
But let's talk about this on the next.
Wonderful.
And so let's have the second half of the Blago art video, more and more pieces of his beautiful art and his beautiful intention. And we're also going to see a second piece from Julie, a second art piece that was done for the International Healing Art Project. And remember, anybody who wants to be part of it, anybody who wants to be part of the healing, the acupuncture, the collaboration, a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. No skill level. Anybody who wants to, anybody who wants to have intention of being part of it, please join us. So Blago's second half of his art video, enjoy. Hi everybody, welcome back. So that was a beautiful video from Blago. So thank you for bringing it to us, and we really can't wait to see what piece he creates for the project. And the beautiful art piece you're seeing that was already created for the project was Matt's partner, Julie Dittmar. It's called Trickasana? Okay. Bridging Heaven and Earth. It's multimedia. It's acrylic, ink, fabric, and digital art. And let me read to you what Julie, how she describes producing this piece. This art piece represents how in yoga we touch the earth in poses while reaching towards the heavens. With awareness through movement, we feel deeply into the space where we are right now. The shining Om is like the sun, reflecting the radiance of our own true divine nature. This piece is infused with the healing Reiki energies, vibrations and frequencies from Om tuning forks, and sacred Sanskrit chant. So beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to see, it's beautiful to feel. So we're very fortunate again. So we're back with Matt. So we were talking about consciousness. Why don't you talk a little more about that?
Well, what can we say about that, right?
Go.
No.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. No, I think that part of the dilemma is that when we speak about consciousness, we speak about the ideas of consciousness and the concepts of consciousness. And what I like to bring to the table in any conversation about consciousness is an experience that we can have in our own selves, because once you know it's true for you, again, right,
it translates that everything.
And so my question would be, we were talking about the mind earlier, and just as a little experiment that, of course, as we have these experiments, people that are watching can have the experience along with us. But in a lot of different situations, the mind is talked about as this spiritual supervillain or the ego and all these things. But if we were just to close our eyes and look within, the question I ask you is, can you find the mind or the ego? Because we can't call something a problem if we can't find it. And so the question becomes, where is the mind or ego when you're not thinking or talking about it? And what might happen is when you look within yourself, you might not find a mind, you might not find an ego, you might not see a sign that says ego over here next to the casino, right? There's just going to be maybe dark, maybe spaciousness, like looking up at the stars late at night. Maybe you'll become aware that there's just awareness. Like, I'm aware when my eyes are closed, but there's nothing I'm aware of. And so then we have the realization of, oh, when my eyes are open, I feel like a person, but on the inside, I don't actually find that person I appear to be when my eyes are open. On the inside, I find just awareness. I'm just aware. When my eyes are open, there's a world of infinite things that I'm aware of. And so what we find, and hopefully when one is sincere enough, this is the type of journey one is interested in, is that if we think of everything in our lives, everything is always changing. So our thoughts are changing, our feelings are changing, the bodies are changing, the world is changing, everything's changing. Everything that changes we're aware of. So awareness is present. When we look within ourselves and there's nothing changing anymore, awareness is still present. So we come to realize as awareness is what always is. And again, to hear me say that is one thing, but what I'm doing is I'm inspiring people to actually look within themselves and just be aware of awareness. Because for me to say what I say is only going to be as powerful as one's willingness to actually take what I say and to see for themselves, because that's what actually creates that trigger of recognition. Again, the problem is we're looking for consciousness. We're trying to become conscious. We're trying to turn the world into a conscious world. The fact is, when you're looking at the world, what's aware of what you're aware of? When you're looking within yourself, what's aware of that? What is silently witnessing the world that you see? What is always watching whatever you're experiencing? And again, that invites our sincerity to become aware of awareness or conscious of consciousness. That you can call it these things if you wish. But when you experience it, it's a spontaneous experience in the void of meaning. In the void of meaning, the significance of life reveals itself. And again, it takes a very sincere heart to be willing to let go of everything, to say, when I let go of it all, what remains? And what am I willing to let go of? Am I willing to actually let go of everything just to know what's true? And when someone has that kind of irrational impulse, that's when the fun can begin. And that's when someone like myself or any other really sincere teacher is here to serve someone at the deepest level, but they have to be willing to take it all the way. And when they are, it's only a matter of experiences and insights that reveals what you've always been. Just as clear as it is right now, I often say you're not the one that speaks the truth, you are the truth that speaks. So we're all trying to say it right, we're all trying to get it right, and that's not really what this is about at all. It's about what remains when everything's let go of. When there's nothing else left to lose, what then will I be afraid of? And perhaps in that moment, the nothingness that reveals itself is everything. That's the invitation. That's the invitation of every moment. Life does nothing but celebrate awakening in every single moment. It's the only thing we came to experience was awakening. It's the only thing happening. And some reason our society still thinks it's only happening to certain special people. That's just the story that's unfolding. That's just the story that's losing power. That's the story that's kind of just disappearing off the planet. And right now we have more and more people awakening in all walks of life, all religions, all backgrounds. And again, there is a sense of this awakening so that when people go through this process, there can be those to help them through the journey. And I'm only here to assist people through the journey. I'm only here to help a seed in blossoming into the fullness of itself so that it can experience itself as that blossoming flower, but from the perspective of the garden. And again, that's the invitation of this entire life for all of us. That's your invitation. That's my invitation. It's the only reason we came here. It's the only thing it's here to do is to realize what you are. And then you can have an extraordinary experience of average existence. That's
Whatever average would
well,
be.
Right.
But,
right.
Eating, sleeping.
Right. So that your experience of what you're doing is the precedent. You're not looking at it as a transitional moment towards something better. You're not looking at becoming something. You're not trying to earn something. You're not building on the foundation of trying to create something else. It's just this. And if this is not spectacular enough, then life will do what it needs to do to bring out the necessary sincerity so that you can see it from a new perspective. Again, life's very precise. I'm only here to be a clear translator of it. So.
That's a beautiful thing, really.
It is.
And the fact that there are so many people coming in with such gifts to, well, let me ask you this, how do you relate to energetics on the planet so that, if the water level gets high enough, everybody gets wet? Why don't you talk a little about that?
To me, energetics are the mystical weather patterns of life. To me, they're just weather patterns. So I feel this energy, I feel that energy. It's like a barometer. But to me, like, oh, I feel cold today, I feel warm, or oh, the energy feels frenetic, or it feels peaceful. But to be honest with you, my experiences of energy is simultaneously irrelevant because it doesn't mean anything to me. And it's not like I'm not trying to make it mean something. It just doesn't come with a conclusion. Like I can walk into a room of very frenetic energy and I can go, oh, it feels very frenetic. But there's no conclusion about that. It just feels frenetic. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't be at peace because
Would you
everyone
say
else...
that in that context, frenetic energy in the third dimension on Earth produces certain results?
It depends what you mean by that.
What would you mean by it?
What I would say is that frenetic energy creates experiences of frenetic energy. But for me, frenetic energy is a phenomenon of many imbalanced nervous systems harmonizing together. And again, a lot of people don't realize that the nervous system is overstimulated because most of us have lived with overstimulated nervous systems our whole life. And of course, then adaptation sets in, and then overstimulation becomes our new way of balance. Right. So I think it's when the sensitivity of energy is still kind of seen as kind of out of the norm. And so then we kind of make it like this mystical thing like, oh, he's sensitive to energy or he knows something I don't. When it's really just actually someone who's energetically sensitive is actually just realizing that the overstimulated nervous system is not our normal way of being. And so then you can feel different energies and if we're talking about what results overstimulation brings about, like people could say if we're all overstimulated, then we all clash instead of love. But what I would say is what brings about the results of something like war and conflict is certainty. When we have something called fundamentalism, when someone is resonating with a certain possibility at the expense or limitation of other possibilities, and we have two people of opposing possibilities.
All hell breaks loose.
All hell breaks loose, and things get destroyed. But in the process of that destruction, what usually gets destroyed are both of the certainties people are holding on to. So war...
It's amazing how long they hold on to the
It's amazing how we can hold on to things for so
really,
long.
that
So what
is
I would
amazing.
say is that you can't have a war unless two people are divided equally. So what I would invite everyone to do is just not be certain, meaning the question is, what do I get out of being so certain? And usually what we find when we inquire into this is that certainty is something we resonate with or hold on to because we're afraid of losing something in our life. We're actually afraid of loss. And through our fear of loss, we need to be certain because we're afraid of letting go.
Right. We have to be very strong about
Right.
because the fear is so great.
Right, and then of course being strong makes an enemy out of vulnerability, and vulnerability is actually when the heart opens to the purity of life and reality.
Right.
So we've valued strength to oppose the inevitability of loss and wonder why we're not feeling the joy of vulnerability, because we've turned it into a villain. We're saying when I'm vulnerable, I wasn't good enough to oppose and to avoid it. So what we have to actually do is realize that life's actually being seen a little backwards, that the strength is being totally vulnerable to every moment. If I have an emotion arising, it's only showing me what's there to be loved. So if I have a vulnerable moment and I burst into tears, in that moment, who needs love? Of course I do. So love the one who feels that way. And so this path of awakening isn't about being strong, because strength is only as potent as your need to avoid losing something. What happens when you look inside your body? You close your eyes and you look within, and you go, my God, what am I afraid of losing if there's no one there to gain anything? Who does loss belong to? Look inside your body and find it. Who does gain belong to? Look inside your body and find it. If you can't find a person inside the body by just looking, then gain and loss are irrelevant.
And if you don't even find the human body in there, then
Right.
death won't be an issue either
Right.
of the human body.
As I say, you cannot stop what never began. So, what are we really talking about? And the next question becomes, what's it like to be without, even without my ideas of what I'm without? See, most of the time we are lonely, we are downtrodden, we are sad, we are ashamed, we are feeling all these different emotions because we're actually alone with our thoughts. What happens if being without even includes being without your ideas of what you're without?
Yeah,
All of a
we're
sudden-
not defining anything.
Right, then all of a sudden isolation becomes solitude, and then we're having an experience of what it's like to just be, to be on vacation from your ideas of certainty. And we notice when we're on vacation from our ideas of certainty, there's actually nothing to lose. And when there's
I
nothing to
always
lose,
talk about
right.
people need a vacation from themselves.
Wonderful.
You know, I mean, that's-
Right, and then the next question would be, who was even there to take that vacation if there's no
Right.
one there?
Right.
So how does one take a vacation from themselves if they can see that on the inside there was never a separate individual self there to begin with? So the question really becomes, my God, when I look within, the question isn't, are these statements true or false? The question is, who do these thoughts, feelings, and history of conditions belong to? If you on the inside can't find anyone with whom it belongs to, then it's irrelevant. And the real question becomes, when there's nothing else to lose, what then will I fear? And the answer is nothing. But in the nothingness, those that aren't ready for it will get bored. And those that will get bored will get frustrated and agitated, because there's nothing to gain in nothingness. And there's no one to enter nothingness, because nothingness is itself. The realization is, my God, nothingness is appearing as someone right now. I'm having a direct experience of what it's like to be someone, and on the inside...
Well, let me ask
Yes.
you this. When you're experiencing this nothingness,
Yeah.
would you say that in a human body it feels like people would define love? It feels full. Just to use words, how would
Sure.
you describe?
I describe love as the absence of meaning. Think of when you're embracing your lover. In that moment of embracing him, you're not thinking about anything, you're just having that moment of embrace. Prior to the moment or after the moment, we give meaning to it, so we chase it. But love itself is absent of meaning, and one of the things that we've been led to believe in this world is if something is absent of meaning, it cannot be full of significance. And the truth that we may find out for ourselves is that something that's full of significance is only noticed through the absence of meaning. So what I've
Say that
actually,
again?
we've believed that when something is full of significance, we can only feel that significance through meaning. But when we realize in a space that's absent of meaning, the significance is already ever present.
Right, because that's what exists
Right.
like the root, the core, however
Right,
you look
it
at
exists as everything.
As your true nature.
As everything, and true
Right.
nature is everything. So what I would say is love is emptiness. So if you're seeking love, you're seeking something by avoiding emptiness. So reside in emptiness. How can you do that wrong? To do it wrong means you're still chasing something. So love is emptiness. The emptiness, right, a baby is manifested from two parents, but where did it really come from? It came out of nowhere. It came out of emptiness. Where do we return to throughout this life? Into emptiness. So everything arises and subsides in the emptiness of love. And when you have ideas of love, when you have the ideas of what you want from love, what it needs to give to you or what you want to give to it, it's a denial of emptiness. So really, who's willing to dissolve into the emptiness of their true self? Sincerity is. Curiosity is.
Every human actually wants it. That's why they're here.
They want it.
Right.
But what they want is also what they're afraid of. And they're afraid of it because of their ideas. They're afraid to become nothing, which
Well,
has
as
nothing.
soon as separation came in,
Right.
the fear came in.
Right, and what I would say to that is we're afraid of becoming nothing. Becoming nothing is a nightmare. The realization of being nothing,
right,
is a beautiful heaven on earth.
Right.
So what I would say is don't worry about becoming nothing, because that's where the fear is. But what is it
We're
like?
coming to the end. Anybody want any information? Alan, 805-687-2053. 805-687. Good night. We love you. God bless you.